Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Boobies and Noobies. You can follow us at Boobies Podcast on both Instagram and Twitter. And if you'd like to support the podcast and get a little extra bonus Boobies content every month, you can support us on Patreon at Boobies Podcast. Welcome to Boobies and Noobies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today I'm joined by LA actor, producer, and Improv 1 class alum, Kristen Springer. Welcome, Kristen.
Hi, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Happy to have you, especially on a miserably rainy day in Los Angeles. Just the fact that you left your house, I am so thankful for.
It was pretty treacherous getting here, I have to admit, but for you, Kelly, I would make that trip over and over again.
For me, for art, for erotica. I don't know what's
the love
better.
Of it all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and if anybody can hear, generally you hear children playing outside my apartment in the background, but today it is pouring rain. I know that that's nothing to complain about, what with like the polar vortex that's sweeping the Midwest and East Coast right now. So
I would totally take the rain. And I don't know about you, but I like it when it rains in LA. Just kind of wash away the stink and
and then it's always cleanest. Like once the rain goes away, you have like no smog, perfect views. I mean, you don't really notice how much smog is actually in LA until after it rains and it's crystal clear out and you're like, wait a second, what is that? Oh, it's fresh air. Like I forgot that that's a thing. So yeah, I'm with you. Although I like to enjoy the rain from inside.
Yes.
Where I can watch it from the warmth of my apartment.
Ditto, girl.
Now, Kristen and her boo thing. I don't actually know your boo thing's name.
No, boo thing's his name.
Oh, boo thing's his name. Okay. Kristen and boo thing, capital B, capital T, boo thing. They have their own production company with probably the best name I've ever heard for a production company.
You.
Passionate Apathy Entertainment.
Woo!
Now, I have to ask, I feel like if you investigate Passionate Apathy and you see the type of content you guys produce, then the name makes sense. But do you want to just give a brief of like what you guys do, what you're about, what you're working on these days?
Sure. So Passionate Apathy Entertainment was born 6 years ago out of a general just disrespect of other people's production companies and other people's projects that were going on, and we wanted no part of it. So we're like, well, why don't we just make a production company?
Yeah.
Lee has... Whoops.
Is that boo thing?
That's boo thing.
We'll just say in quotations.
The cat's out of the bag. Lee has his background in stand-up comedy. That's how we met.
Oh, great.
So the name was his idea. I'll give him credit for that. And the type of content we produce is, I think, what you would expect from a production company called Passionate Apathy Entertainment.
Yeah.
It's a lot of comedy, a lot of twisted, dark, just content. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
That's great.
You do need to have a pretty good sense of humor to enjoy some of our stuff.
Right, which we know that a ton of people out there just don't have, but as evidenced by like Twitter.
Yes. So yeah, that's kind of what we're about. We make a little bit of everything. We've dabbled in feature lengths. We released our first feature length a few years ago, Angel's Bounty. You can watch it on Amazon if you have Amazon Prime. You can watch it for free, starring moi. And
are you Angel?
I'm Angel.
Angel in Angel's Bounty?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
You were so good at this.
Celebrity.
I'll sign anything.
Yes.
And we've dabbled in web series. We did a little sketch comedy called This Show Right Here. And currently we're working on a series of shorts. They're all based on holidays.
Oh, I like
think
that
they put
idea.
out a movie, like Kevin Smith and somebody put out a movie a couple years ago that was like, it was like a big anthology of holiday-based videos, but
Okay.
these are individual shorts, individual movies.
Got it.
Did finish our Christmas one in time for Christmas. It is called Merry Xmas.
Aww.
I think you can still find it on YouTube. We're submitting it to festivals, so we might have already taken it down, but look for it because it's fun.
I get it. Well, that's awesome.
Well,
how
thank
exciting.
you.
And how can somebody find Passionate Apathy Entertainment online, or like find what you guys are putting out there besides Angel's Bounty on Amazon?
Best way to find us or follow us is check out our website. It's www.passionateapathy.entertainment.com. I know it's long. Or just find us on Twitter at passionateappint. So that's A-P-E-N-T. That is our handle.
That's okay. So funny we should talk about long names for things,
Okay.
because today we will be discussing the book. I need to wrap my head around this. Today we will be discussing the book The Secret to Dating Your Best Friend's Sister by Meghan Quinn. So definitely not the shortest of titles. It's actually not the shortest of books either.
It's
I was surprised
not.
by how long it was. I don't know if it's a negative thing. I mean, I'm sure. I don't know. We'll talk about it, but
we'll get into it. Yeah.
The length of the book matches the length of the title. Let's say that.
Indeed. I liked your shortened version of the.
TSTDYBFS. Yeah, that's so much shorter. So much shorter and so much more, easy to remember.
But yes, we'll get into it.
Well, the book is The Secret to Dating Your Best Friend's Sister by Meghan Quinn, and the book was published this year, January 2019, and is available on Amazon for $3.99 Kindle edition. That's actually nice that it's a longer book and it's actually on the cheaper end. We just reviewed one that was, I want to say shorter than this book, but it was almost $10, and I was like, whoa, like that's how much I would expect to pay for a paperback in a store.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I just generally assume Kindle editions are going to be cheaper.
Yeah, no, I was totally happy about it, and just so you know, Kelly, you broke my Kindle cherry. Yeah, I have never read a Kindle edition of anything. I am a reader, but hard copies, baby. So this was, it was fun, and it is convenient, okay? Hey, I'm not against it. It's convenient. It's cheap.
Oh my gosh.
I understand.
Yeah, no, and that, you know what? I mean, I am all for a hard copy, even a paperback book. I mean, I love books. Like, I have a bookshelf full of books. Whenever I go to a bookstore, I have to buy something.
Yes.
But there's something, I think with the Kindle, it's just more about the convenience factor that on a day like this where it's rainy and miserable outside, I can literally click a button and
read anything.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
Although that's also dangerous, like, because you'll be like, oh, great, but now I just spent $30 on books, like, all from the safety of my bedroom. Like, that's not supposed to happen.
I never have to leave again.
Yes, online shopping. It's both a haven and a killer. Like, oh boy, but
Dangerous.
I love it. So before having read TSTDYBFS. So you had read 50 Shades.
Yes.
Did you read all of them?
No, just the first one.
Just the first one. That was enough.
Look, I did not have a problem with 50 Shades. I thought it was good. I thought it was well written, all that. I actually didn't have a problem with the movie. But it's a long one as well. And at that time, I did not realize there was more to come. So I think I just kind of, faded out of it and had no interest in carrying on.
Right.
And
and you know what? We've talked shit about 50 Shades. A lot of people have talked shit about 50 Shades.
Everybody does.
But I have to also give 50 Shades credit where it's due, which is that I feel like a lot of people discovered romance and erotica by reading 50 Shades. And that maybe that was the one that opened the door to a much larger world for them. And I don't know why it was 50 Shades. Like, I don't know why that was the one that, like, took off. Like, it's not like it was the first book about BDSM relationships ever. Like, that's definitely not the case. But, like, that was the one that became very much in the public sphere and commercialized. And again, I don't know why. I don't know why that one, like, but
why
you
did
never
that catch on?
Yeah, like, why Twilight? Why? I mean, how, you can't really say, like, why one thing or the other, right?
Yeah.
But
It's just whatever catches the fancy of, of the public, of the population.
Because it did, I mean, I feel like there is a very large fan base of that series specifically.
Yes. I will say, though, sorry to interrupt there.
No, go for it.
With that one, some kind of theory in there, I think, which has to do what I'm going to talk about later with this story, is that the characters, especially the man, I can't remember his name.
Christian Grey. You know what? And I bitch about it, but I've watched all the movies. I've read all the books, so whatever.
No, I thought he was written well.
Okay.
I thought he was written well as a man, as that fantasy ideal. I thought it was well done.
Fantasy ideal meaning being...
As a woman reading a book like that,
okay, I
have a fantasy ideal of a man and a reality ideal of a man. They're two very different things.
Yeah.
And for the fantasy ideal, I think I'm not alone in saying we do want that, the knight in shining armor. Protector. He's got just enough anger, just enough emotional depth, just enough of everything.
Yeah.
And maybe a little rough in the bedroom sometimes. I don't know. Yeah. Keep it, real and keep me guessing, I guess. But he was just the way he was written, as opposed to what we'll talk about later.
Yeah. No, I like kind of that you separated it, though, into like the fantasy ideal as opposed to the real man. That's an interesting way to think about it, because that's something that, like, when I read romance, I know I'm a romantic. I love romantic comedies. I love romance novels. I can only separate myself from realism so much, though. Like, there'll be parts where I'll be like, why would you do that? Like, you wouldn't do that. Or, like, no guy's gonna ever say that, like, sort of thing. So, I mean, there's definitely a part of me that I can't remove from reading them. I feel like I can't dive completely into the fantasy, like 100%, because I'm also a 20-something woman dating in America. Like, it's, it's hard for me. But, so maybe that's on me. But
I think that's a good point. And maybe if I had read more, it would be a case-by-case basis.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see, because I know we don't get it in this one. I mean, they play around with, like, the different sex they have in this one. But it'd be interesting to have you read, like, another bondage BDSM,
I wouldn't
like,
mind
dom
just to
sub
compare.
story, just to see like what, because I know that even 50 Shades was like a big thing talked about within like the BDSM community, because they didn't feel like it was an accurate representation of like what their community is like. I remember all that talk when it came out, years ago. But anyway, anywho, with the secret to dating your best friend's sister, TSTDYBFS. You know what? It's never going to get any shorter. Like,
is it an acronym-ish? Like, can we say I can't even.
Yeah, no, it's not even.
It's very.
There's no easy way. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. What? Before we even tell them what we thought about this book, I'm just going to give everybody the Amazon synopsis of this book.
Wonderful.
And you mentioned you didn't read this before reading it?
I didn't. I'm excited.
Okay, yeah, because sometimes when we choose the books, I'll ask people what they want to read, or I'll have people explore a couple options, and they'll check the synopsis or a sample or something. I think with this one, you were pretty open about what we read, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so, and I honestly, I have like a running list of like, books that I want to read, books that are coming out soon. So this was on my to-be-read list, #TBR, and I just made you read it. So I love that, though, you didn't look at the synopsis. So this will be for the first time. Okay. You tell me how well this matches up with the book you actually had.
Ready.
Here we go. How do you date your best friend's sister? Easy. Step 1. Pretend you want her to set you up with someone else. That will bring the two of you closer. Step 2. Go on date with lots of random women. Proceed to get stupid drunk and talk about your best friend's sister, thus gaining the courage to finally make a move. Step 3. Randomly show up at her apartment and confess your love. Women love that, right? It all seems so simple. A foolproof 3-step process that will guarantee the love of you. 3-step process that will guarantee the love of your life to fall madly in love with you. At least that's what I thought was going to happen. But my attempts to win over Julia Westin backfired in more ways than I can count. The thing about Julia, she's smart, really smart, and her wicked gaze cuts through all the charm I've tried slinging her way. She's not interested in games, my gifts, or my stories. She might want me too, but she's not giving in that easy. Okay.
That was it.
Yeah, that's it. I feel like that's definitely most of it's there. Like, I don't know about step 2 of going on dates with lots of random women and getting stupid drunk. That happens once.
Well, he had 2 dates.
But, like, when he gets stupid drunk and then, like, confesses his love. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not, like, numerous dates. But no. I would say that was written in the same voice that the story is written, it seems like.
So this is going to be one of those things, and Kristen and I talked about this a little bit before we started recording. I think people will love this book if you can have fun with the main, if you love Bram, the main character, you'll love this book.
Totally.
If you don't love Bram, you'll be very mildly annoyed. Like, I personally would waver a little bit back and forth, but honestly, I love him. Like, it's my kind of silly, doofy guy. Like, I'm with him. I don't know if you agree, which is okay. That's absolutely okay. But you can see what I'm talking about.
Sure.
I'll pause. Yeah. For me, generally when you have a story where there's a dual protagonist, dual perspectives being told, like that, you see this in a lot of romance actually, where you'll have a chapter from the men's point of view and a chapter from the woman's point of view, like in a heterosexual situation, obviously.
Okay.
But this one, I felt it was much more, I thought it was interesting because it felt like it was much more from Bram's perspective. It's his story, which I really like. I do like this idea of like having a romance from a male point of view. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think because women read romance, people assume they'll want to read about a woman's experience. And I understand that. I mean, I totally connect with that. Totally. But at the same time, I like that he's the one pining after somebody in this story. That he's the one who's had a crush on this girl and he doesn't know how to approach it, but at the same time, like, he's really, I mean, he's definitely got a lot of the tropes of like a romance novel where he's the billionaire, self-made man. But what I love is that he's douchey in his own way, but it's not because of the money. Like, it's not like he's a douchey billionaire. It's that he and his friends, one of which happens to be the brother of the woman he's in love with, they, get together and they play fantasy football and they, just shoot the shit and go to bars. Like, they're never really doing douchey billionaire things. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna like jump on the jet and I'm gonna take us all to, Saint Martin for the weekend. Like, so I did like that. There's definitely areas where I feel like it could have been a very different story. Like, it could have been the typical billionaire romance, but it wasn't. And I liked that. And I liked that not only is he like this self-made man, and although I think it's kind of funny that everyone in their friend group has done very well for themselves. Like, it's him, and then the brother's name is
Wrath.
Yeah, which I thought, I was like, what? Like,
interesting.
Yeah, I was like waiting for like Rathbone. Like, what? Where does this come from? But
it's Bram, Wrath, and Rourke.
Yes. Yeah, and he's the Irish friend that they met in college.
Rourke McCool.
Yeah. I for sure highlighted the first time we met Rourke. And, here you go. Rourke McCool bounces. And I wrote, that's his fucking name? Are you serious? But not in a bad way, because I was like, Rourke McCool, that is a name you are going to remember.
Oh, I dig it. I totally dig it.
Yeah. And Bram, Wrath, I was like, all these guys have these super weird but super McCool names.
Okay, yeah.
But, and then her name's Julia. I was like, okay, but fine.
Julia Westin.
Yeah.
It's got a little, I don't know, something to it.
It sounds very like Upper East Side, like
Totally.
Manhattan, doesn't it? You
Yeah.
know? So what we know at the beginning, from the very beginning, is that Bram has been in love with Julia for years.
Mm-hmm.
They're, you know, he's, what does he say, like 32, 33?
Yeah, they got to be around that time. They met in college.
Yeah, he's a couple years older than her.
Mm-hmm.
He's been friends with her brother since college.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, you know, kind of, he never really acted on it. In college, he tried to ask her out, but because he was like the playboy, frat boy kind of guy, she sort of laughed it off as like, yeah, okay. And he was actually really into her. And I did like that, whether you like Bram or not, or you're into his personality, it's clear that he really does like her. Like, at least from my perspective, I was like, he definitely, I feel like, goes about it in odd ways, but it never, he knows so much about her though, that he's like, I'm not trying to buy her with money. I'm not trying to like win her over with gifts, although he still does try to do that. And he clearly has feelings for her, like, and he's harbored them for so long, which drives me personally insane. Like, it's one of those realism things, you know, hitting me in the head where I'm just like,
there wouldn't be a book without him waiting for 10 years,
but
Kelly.
This is also, like, I feel like what people do. Like, I mean, although that seems like a really long time, too. Like, it felt really long to wait that long. Like, I just feel like somebody would, you know, move on. And he has moved on. I mean, he's had relationships. He's dated people. Not relationships. He's dated. He's slept around.
To quote him from the book, he's had hundreds of one-night stands.
Yes. Hundreds, yeah.
The STDs in this man.
Right? Oh my gosh, I know. But at the same time, it's kind of like he's biding his time until they get together.
Nothing is real because he's waiting
for
Julia.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, how can I have a relationship when the one person I want to have a relationship with isn't ready or willing. He always uses that term, she's not ready. She's not ready for me yet. Yeah. And for some reason, this part I guess never really clicked for me, is like, he decides after seeing her at a function they went to, some sort of fundraiser, because the book starts, but at one point there's like 6 months ago, and he keeps referencing this point where he saw her at this fundraiser, and he knew she's ready. Like, this is the time for me to make my move. I know she's ready for me now. I guess I never really got that from the flashback. Why that? Because she like smiles at him and they dance.
Too,
yeah, she's drunk.
Being like friendlier than she usually is. You know, her cold ass. So I don't know why either. I agree with you. I'm not sure why that was the moment.
It wasn't, and you know what? It wasn't even something that I was like, I don't know if we even needed to have that. Like, of, you know, just like, there was that magic moment where he thought, oh, this is perfect timing. Like, I don't know.
And that included, I always kind of got the sense reading through this that they really didn't see a whole lot of each other over these 10 years. And even back in college, I mean, they randomly would bump into each other and at random
and he sees Wrath a lot. And so maybe by
yeah.
seeing Wrath, he sees Julia, but not like, it's never the two of them hanging out.
Right. And I guess I just never got that sense, like, okay, you say you love this person so much. Like, I just felt like there should have been more, together time. Because if he's randomly seeing her, you know, every couple of years, like, that's a flame you're keeping lit for.
Right. Well, then it also begs the question of, are you in love with this person now, or are you in love with this person, the version of them from 10 years ago in college? Sure. Like, that's not going to be. I mean, I've seen that movie. I've read that book where people are together with the same person for so long, but then they realize, why are we still together? We're completely different versions of who we were.
I'm a completely different person than who I was 10 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's a fantasy.
Yeah.
So we're going to go with it.
This one and the last couple books we've read, though, there's still this really big element of reality in it that draws me. I like reading romances where I can kind of envision the fantasy being real. Like, this is so yes, it's a fantasy, yes, it's a book and it's fiction, but this could very well be me. This could very well be, because I feel like that's when you can connect and especially fantasize with reading romance, is when you're like, oh my gosh, this could happen to me. This could be me. And whether you see yourself, I think you can see yourself as Bram or you can see yourself as Julia, which is really, I think, well done on Meghan Quinn's part. That she really has created them.
I thought, just personally, Julia was really well written. I thought she was fleshed out. I thought I empathized with her. Like, I could see things from her point of view. So I thought she was a really good character.
Let's talk about Julia for a second, because we both really liked her, and I loved her because I think people have a misconception that if you're serious or focused, you're boring. And she isn't.
She's not. She's multifaceted.
Yes.
And her history is really well thought out. Like, she's a fleshed out character.
Really, really. And I think Meghan Quinn did really well with not just fleshing out, oh my gosh, that rain.
You hear that?
Yeah. I think she did a good job of fleshing out not just Bram and Julia, but we also kind of get these great looks at Rourke and Wrath.
Okay.
That I'm assuming that there's got to be books coming out about each of them.
You know, that is so funny that you say that, because I literally have in my notes here, I want to see the romance novel of Rourke.
I really do too, because he seems like the damaged one,
he
like
is,
the one who's got a lot of issues.
And he's got the Irish accent.
Yes.
You gotta love an Irish accent. And at the end, you know, he's kind of left hanging.
Yeah.
Like, he's just the poor sob. He's drinking like a fish.
He's got problems.
And we don't really wrap up with him.
Oh my God, look, we've got a waterfall outside.
There's literally a waterfall outside of your door.
This is so fantastic. I don't even have to go to Hawaii. Oh my gosh, yeah. Again, apologies for the rain, part 2.
Oh, that's nice, a little ambiance.
Yes. We gotta light a fire. Oh, I don't have a fireplace. Rats. Light a candle.
Okay.
Nice and romantic.
By handle.
But yeah, no, I will definitely read Rourke's story. And honestly, of the 3 guys, I know this is getting a little off topic from Julia, but of the 3 guys, Bram, Wrath, and Rourke, who would... Let's do a classic, marry, fuck, or kill. Who are you going to take of these lovely gents? Or, I mean, you don't even have to marry, fuck, or kill. You could just pick, like, who's the one you would date? Or, like, you know, I always love marry, fuck, or kill, though. Okay. That's actually the podcast, My Worst Date, the one that I'm doing the live show with on February 9th, which by the time this episode comes out, would have probably already happened. But that's one of their regular... segments that they do on My Worst Date, is they do they do a marry, fuck, or kill.
Oh, fun.
And they're always so funny. So
well, we could do it.
I'm not stealing it. It just, I feel like the last few episodes we've kind of like done one every once in a while because there'll be like 3 things to choose from. Okay. So we have 3 men in this, you know?
Okay.
It's really natural.
All right. Well, I'll say who I would marry. No. Okay.
It's hard.
It is hard. I don't know, because that's like I would run from Bram. I just know that.
Okay.
And I guess, I mean, Wrath is like the you know, the one that's even keel. He's got his shit together.
I would marry him.
He's got his life together. Rourke sounds like a lot of fun. Like, I would want to hang with that guy. Like, I don't know. I want to know more about that.
Okay. Yeah. See, and that's hard because, too, we don't know his whole story. Yeah. So going off just the context of this book, I would for sure marry Wrath. Wrath is like my favorite one. I think he's like the most stable, but he still seems like fun. Like, he still seems like a fun personality. Yeah. I would fuck Bram because I don't know if I could commit to Bram and his personality, but he would be good in bed. He would be really good in bed, as evidenced by this book and by all the people he's slept with. And at this time, I would have to get rid of Rourke. Not that I didn't like him. I think I'd fuck him too. Like, if I could have a threesome with him and Bram, that'd be great.
He's not steady material.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm just like, I don't know what to do with you yet. Yeah. Like, but after I read his book, Meghan Quinn, please
Quinn,
write them.
Do
like,
it.
So anyway, we were talking about Julia.
Yes, but real quick before
Okay.
that, and to your point,
Yeah.
the supporting cast, the characters, I agree with you. I thought it was a good supporting cast, and we got
Yeah.
to meet all these characters, and they were very memorable. I have that note in here too.
Oh, good.
Because I'm a fan of a good supporting cast and good
Yes.
characters.
Yeah. Not just being there because sometimes I feel like you'll have like the man, the woman, and then everybody else all loped into one, you know? But this one, in fact, for me, poor Julia, we're just never going to talk about her.
We're getting
we
there.
will get to you, Julia. For me, the real love story is the bromance between Bram and Raph. Like, it is the most precious thing ever. Like, because it goes all the way back to college, and there's moments where in the college flashbacks, Julia's like, yeah, I thought you guys were like lovers, because you're always touching each other. You'll be like, I love you, man. Like, and then in even modern day, so, 11, 12 years later, these guys, I mean, when Raph eventually finds out that Bram and Julia are together, he's like, oh, that's great. Congrats.
Yeah,
you better not hurt my best friend.
Otherwise, I will kill you. I think that's what he said, right?
And I'm just
but,
like,
I mean, yeah, it's in that bro way.
They love each other so much.
Yes, that's
like,
quite
it's
obvious.
I loved that. I don't get to read enough of like male friendship stories, I guess because, toxic masculinity that, people want to see like the alpha man and like he can't cry, he can't have feelings, So I feel like we don't see that enough in the world, let alone in a romance novel.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I loved seeing the boys together.
That was fun. That was a fun relationship.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun. Okay, should we talk about Julia?
Let's.
Before we get off topic,
Yes.
because I'm sure we'll have plenty to say about Bram as well. Julia has created a matchmaking service that I actually think is really cool. It's something that I would want to try out to understand more of.
Oh, I totally would too. It's a neat idea.
Yeah, and it would actually surprise me if something like this isn't already out there. There's got to be a version of this somewhere. But the whole idea behind it is that you take this personality test, and she has her PhD in, what was it, behavioral sciences, sociology?
So. Yeah, something like that.
Something about working with people, how people's minds think. It's not psychology, but it's
related.
Behavioral.
Somehow,
Yeah. And she's created a program where you take these long personality tests, you do an interview with her, you have like multi-steps, and it all ends with you being labeled as a color. And depending on what your color is on this color wheel, it'll decide what other colors you match with.
Right. And in the book, she has like a 99% success rate.
Yeah. And because I definitely was with Bram at some points because, of course, one of the things he does to get closer to her is he's like, it even starts before that. He and the guys have their fantasy football draft. And they make a bet, as a lot of people do, right? Of who wins, who loses, what. And so the loser always has to do something. And they decide that for this year, the loser has to take Julia's program. They have to do the program. And Bram admits to losing on purpose, which I think they do a great job of in this book, too, of calling back to a lot of things. There's a lot of callbacks to him benching Russell Wilson in his fantasy draft. He's like, who the fuck would do that? Yeah. And then there's the callback to how he thinks she was so sexy in her tube socks the first time they met.
The tube socks.
Yeah. So I liked it. Like, so I can see where that would get like, okay, we get it. Tube socks, Yeah. So maybe like one too many times, but I liked that it kept popping up like, because it also reminds you of like why he's so into her. But the whole point is that he takes her personality test, and the questions are like, which of these is your favorite fruits? Fire truck, oven, lamp, or candle. And he's like, what the fuck is this? Like, are you messing with me? And she kind of explains to him like what the purpose is behind it. But I'm really intrigued by this whole program, although I would find that part frustrating to me as well.
And it's something like 300 of these questions or something, so he
Yikes.
whizzes through it.
Right, because he cheats. He's like, I'm not going to answer these, I'm just going to mark bubbles, which again ends up being like a problem later in the book, which wasn't my favorite thing, but I could see where that would
problem
come up. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's interesting. She's a made woman. She's, created this business. She's gotten her PhD. She's opened up shop. It's very
strong,
successful.
She's smart, she's successful.
Yeah, she was great. I mean, she's the woman that I could see where if you're reading this and you want to connect with a character, you're like, that's who I want to be. Like, I want to be...
Totally, yes.
I want to be as confident, kind of. Like, she seems very confident in what she does, but not so much like... She's kind of like that type of... She puts so much into her work that she doesn't really think about herself.
Yeah.
The one thing that really bothered me is that she started this business with this really intense program, and until close to the end, after Bram already tells her to do it, she's never taken the test herself or figured out what her color is. I found that so unbelievable. I was like, wait, I'm sorry. Like, how would you know? Wouldn't you be the first person that you would do?
Right.
Yeah.
I guess it didn't bother me at the time, but now I'm thinking about it. I was like, oh, that's ridiculous.
Right?
It is absolutely ridiculous. Yeah.
I guess, for me, I'm like, I could justify it to be like, well, she focuses so much on other people. She doesn't really... She even admits, she's like, I feel like I've been kind of sabotaging these relationships I've had because I went into them, like, not fully into it. And so I could see where she's, like, almost afraid to take it. Like, she doesn't want to know, like, because then it would be real. Then it would be, like, this is real. Like, her relationship with Bram becomes real, but she doesn't want to admit it. So I get it. I get it, but I don't get it. Like,
it feels like it's in place there just to create that problem, specifically that tension.
Yeah. I guess that was the one thing, was this book progresses really interestingly, like different from a lot of romances I've read, because they got together. Well, there's the long period of time where he's pursuing her, like, kind of secretly. And, we know his motivation because we get a lot of narration from Bram. Like, we know what he wants. He wants Julia. And he's not just going to tell her. So then we finally get to the point where he tells her, I'm into you. I really like you. I liked you then. I like you now. And I thought from there would be a lot more of, like, I don't know, like, what's going to happen. But they actually get together, like, pretty quickly.
They start dating against her better judgment.
Yeah, they start dating. And so I guess at that point I was kind of wondering, like, okay, I wonder what's going to be the conflict here. Like, what's going to happen? I've read other books where they do get together, and, like, usually it's less of a conflict between them at that point and more of, like, something outside. Like, oh, no, we can never be together because... my, drunk father is, like, going to sabotage our relationship or, like, make you look in bad light, So I was kind of wondering, like, where it would go from there. So then I thought, okay, this is going to be, like, a problem of him having to tell Wrath that he's with his sister. Like, maybe that's the problem. But no, Wrath is okay with it. Like, he finds out quickly... and is like, oh, so you guys are, like, a thing? Oh, my God, that's amazing. Yeah, he's, like, super into it. So, I kept wondering, like, what the issue was going to be. And then...
is Julia's own logical brain not allowing her to put her color and his color together. They just don't go together. It will fail.
Yeah, so. And I feel like I totally understand that. You know what it feels like if, like, you were watching, like, a Hallmark movie or something, like...
a little bit, yeah.
It's very natural. Like, I mean, it makes sense of, like, she has a company where they match people based on color. He, loves her. He's the perfect match, but he's not because his color is wrong. So, I mean, it makes sense. I get it. I feel like it came a little late. Like, it didn't come... In fact, I think I marked my book at... and I read this on Kindle. So, like, they give you, like, the percentage of where you're at in the book. And so I marked when it happened that they had this, like, misunderstanding. And it was at 90% of the way into the Kindle book.
Like, there was a lot crammed into just the last, 100 pages or so.
That would probably be, I liked Bram's personality. I could see where people wouldn't, but that would be my one complaint about the book, is that I loved the first half of the story. I loved the pursuit. I loved him going after her. And then even when they got together, the sex they have is like really fun. Like, I've never seen, and we can talk about that, I've never read a scene where a woman uses a vibrator on a man. And oh my God, I was like, oh my God, I love this.
At that point, like, it was just set up, talk, dialogue, okay, set up. And then all of a sudden we took a dive off into the sex pit of these two.
And it was a lot. It was a lot at once. It was kind of like, oh, this was all pent up through the first 200 pages and the last 12 years, so, and then they just kept doing it.
Yep.
But then you're right, the last 10% of the book. So, I mean, we're talking like, I guess because it's probably like a 400-page book, right?
Yeah,
it's pretty long. Yeah. But in the last, 10% of the book, there's a lot happening. And it just felt really pushed back to me. Like, I kind of expected the color thing to come up at some point, because she made such a big deal of him being a red early on and not understanding why. And we know that it's because he just like filled in random answers on his test. And so it's one of those things where you're like yelling at the book or the movie screen or the TV, like, no, he's not a red. Like, just, why don't you get it? Like, and of course, so it makes sense that when she does take her test and find out that was it green or blue?
I think she's green, yeah.
There's something cool and calm that she's like, oh my God, we can never be together. But at 90% of the book, I was confused, like why it was coming in then. Because by the time I had gotten to 90% of the book, I was like, oh, I guess that's not going to be a storyline. Like, that's not going to be part of it.
Yeah, so you were a little surprised by it.
It's like it was the point I was expecting. It just didn't come at the point I expected it to happen. Right. So that jarred me a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. It was a little jarring.
Yeah.
But absolutely, a lot of that it came out of kind of nowhere, like right there at the end, and they were dating up to that point, and then she just couldn't. No, not going to work, and then split skis, and then the book ends. I mean, they they get together. Yeah, it's fine. It's like it's very quick from that conflict, and then the resolution, and then the end.
Yeah,
very quick.
So, and of course, it did end very similar to what I expected. Then coming out of the color fiasco was that you assume he's going to like retake the test or something, right? Like, but then I was like thinking, oh no, it's going to end where she's going to take him, for what he is, regardless of what his color is. Yeah. So it was interesting. I liked that she made that choice before having seen his new results. I almost kind of wanted her to rip up the results and like throw them away, like not even know, like just be, but then I could see where she's so thoughtful and like overthinks everything, which is like said a ton in this book. Like she always thinks about things and has to process them. So I could see where even if she said that, it wouldn't actually click for her. Like she needs the reason and the results and everything.
It would be out of character for
her, but so she does make the decision, and then it's confirmed by seeing his results that they actually are a match.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so they get together and you're like, okay, well, duh, like fine, But yeah, so it definitely had everything that I was like expecting in terms of like, you assume they're gonna get together, and he pursues her and she gives in, and she says like, oh, I always thought he was really cute, I've always found him attractive and everything. She clearly never had like the feelings he did, basically wouldn't let herself have the feelings.
I think that was more of it.
Yeah, so it was very like in character for everybody involved, but yeah, I guess it was just the pacing that was a little off for me in terms of the overall story.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought. I guess the pacing could have been quicker for me in the beginning, but I don't know. Overall, I didn't really have a problem with that because she did spend so much time on on the history and the backstory.
Oh, yeah.
That's appreciated. But then, at the end it sped up so quick.
And that's specifically what I'm talking about, because I actually love how much time is spent on the chase and the backstory. And I loved that.
Yeah.
Like, that to me is like the fun and games of the book, you know? And then it was like the ending was when things got serious and like we had to like actually talk about like the real issues and stuff.
Yeah, just because I don't know, is this like, is the pacing ever an issue with romance novels?
Oh yeah,
is it? Okay,
for sure. Like, I mean, it's not that every, you know, I feel like they follow a very typical formula. I mean, like anything does, right? You know, it's. Yeah. But it follows a very typical formula in romance where you start with your characters, and it's a lot like a romantic comedy. They're either, you know, friends who become lovers, or they were exes and they get back together. You know, you have whatever their setup is. There's some reason in the beginning. I mean, I write romantic comedy. So like for me, I'm like, it always has to start with the question of like, how could these people ever possibly get together? Yeah, like, you know, you have to have doubt, at least some doubt throughout the story. Like, but you know, going in as a romance or romantic comedy, you know, it's going to end well. Like, you know, that they are going to get together. But if you give it to them too soon, then it's like, okay, well, they're together now. Like, what? Right. What else am I reading for? But if you wait too long, too, it's the same thing of like, oh my God, when do they just get together already? You know, so I mean, there's definitely like the delicate balance to find. And then there's usually the misunderstanding or whatever obstacle is between them. There's usually some sort of external conflict, but also I mean, this is not even just about romance. This is very much the structure of any piece of fiction, you know? Right. I mean, it's storytelling. Yeah, so
dark night of the soul. Chase the cat up the tree. Save the
cat.
You know,
it follows all that there.
Formula.
Is it time to talk about Bram?
Do we dare?
Bram. Where do we start? Where do we start with Bram? I like Bram. I do. Like, I like that he's so. It's funny because he's so aware, but then also like completely unaware. Like, you know, I mean, he's like the puppy, like, you know, a very lovable puppy, but it makes me think, I'm like, oh, he's just a boy, you know, like it gives you meaning to like boys will be boys kind of thing, but not in like a gross like rapey way, like very much just like, oh my gosh, like once a college frat boy, always a college frat boy. Right. So, I mean, it's kind of funny to be like, he's douchey, but he's not douchey. Like, but I have a lot of friends that I feel like have very similar personalities to Bram, where they're just sort of, you know, really, I love how open he is. Like, she'll ask him questions she has him very personal questions about his sex life. And I mean, he'll tell her whatever the fuck he wants. Like, he's like, oh yeah, I like this position. I've had sex, you know, probably like 100 one-night stands. Like, but it's not in like a braggy way. I feel like sometimes it gets a little borderline. Is he trying to impress her, or is he just being him, you know, kind of thing?
And it's well established that he's arrogant. Even he says that, you know.
And I think that's what it is like he's never trying to be a douche. He's never trying to brag or impress her. But it's kind of
anything other than what he is.
And that's part of him. Yeah. So that's kind of the thing with him, is that he's never trying to be anything other than what he is. But what he is kind of a, you know, arrogant douche. Which, you know, is, I don't know, there's something endearing about it, but also like man-child about it. So
he's a bro.
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
he's a bro in a business suit. Like, and that's what's funny too, is he even says multiple times, he's like, yeah, you know, Rourke and Raph and I, we're all billionaires. Like, we've all made a great name for ourselves, but we're still also the same, you know, douche guy frat boys that we were
he
10 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah. So I like that he's just so him. It's just a matter of whether or not you're attracted, or you can be attracted to the fantasy of him or not.
I think that is just personal preference.
Yeah, oh, of course. And that's the same for any book, you know. I mean, it's fine. But so let me have it. Tell me about Bram.
Okay. All respect to Ms. Quinn. I do have some bones to pick about Bram
Okay.
Scott.
Bram Scott. Such a good name. He just sounds like a porn star name, doesn't it? Bram Scott.
But it's such a bro name, too.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't even know where to begin. Well, I appreciate that you have introduced a word, douche, that he is one. I was thinking, actually, if there were an alternate title to this. You did a podcast recently. It was of a title, Duke by Day, Rogue by Night.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, an alternate title for this would be Douche by Day, also Douche by Night for Bram Scott. I couldn't get on board with him because of that personal preference.
And that's fine. I can totally understand that. There's other books too where, I mean, this is not the first time. It's like, why would you read a book with an alpha, dominant man if like that's not something that you're attracted to,
right,
or at least the fantasy of it. So I totally understand if it's not your bag. That's fine.
And I almost feel like because he does kind of tick off the boxes of maybe some of the things I would look for in a romance like this, like I can appreciate just for the fantasy's sake. I can appreciate alpha male. Okay, you got this.
Yeah.
Okay, you show up in the nick of time for whatever. But maybe for me personally, it would have been a better story had we never seen his point of view. If it hadn't been his story.
Oh, interesting.
And him telling it.
It definitely would have been a
Julia.
different story. That's for sure.
Yes.
That's for sure.
But I felt like him sharing so much kind of ruined the fantasy for me because I was just like maybe with you, I had some problems with this reality that he was establishing. Like, nobody drinks as much beer as Bram does and gets to have chiseled abs because science and
that's like a fantasy element that I can accept because that's in every fucking romance is that the guy has his scotch or his beer. They go out with beer with the guys, but they're always chiseled and well hung. Like every single book. I mean, you gotta have a big dick and hard abs. Like if you don't, what's the point?
And just, I don't know. I mean, just to see into the psyche of Bram.
Yeah.
Bram Scott. It was just too childlike to me, and the way that he saw the situation, it was just very simplified. Like, I need my male protagonist to be just smart and dark and mysterious. And
funny about it too is like I'm scrolling through some of the excerpts that I picked out, and like there's the part where she asks him about his sex life, and he tells her very blatantly about it, and then he starts asking her. And she, is actually pretty open and is like, I haven't been with a guy in a couple years. And he just offers to go down on her, like right there in his office. And so this is right after she leaves because she's like, what? No. And he's like, this is his narration. Okay, maybe I came on a little too strong with the whole eating her out business on my desk. Granted, it had been a fantasy of mine, but what the hell was I supposed to do? Like, he always had this, and you get that same kind of notion all the time. Like, well, I was just being honest. Like, was there something wrong with that? And
what else could I have done?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I can't help but laugh, but then at the same time I'm like, wait, are you serious? I'm just so confused. So I love that he has this polite offer to just like eat her out. I'm like, wow, I wish more guys did that. But then I'm like, at the same time, do I? Like, do I wish people were just like, you haven't had sex in 2 years? Great, get on the desk. It's
okay.
I'm so torn. I'm so torn on that one. So I get it.
A lot of things like that. Yeah, I totally.
That really is like his ongoing. But my ongoing battle with Bram is I'm like, I don't know if I could be with him forever because I feel like it would drive me a little crazy of like the very open, and I'm very open, but just this is how, I don't know, because it's not really what he says, it's more just the way he is.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way I am. That's the way he is.
Right,
and
he's being true to himself, and that's great.
Right.
It gets a little annoying, and she calls that out too. She's like, God, you're so annoying. all the time, and that goes through all the way to the end of the story. So that is just part of his character too. But drives me crazy.
Yeah,
because there are people like that.
For sure.
I just don't want to know that.
Yeah. So that's it's not part of your fantasy, and it's not part of your reality either. Like you don't really want it in either one.
No,
that's fine.
Thank you.
That's fine.
I just snorted.
That's
You're
great.
welcome.
Keep going.
Okay, I'm looking. Okay, I mean, it's not really like here or there, but I had a problem with them being blonde. I don't know what that was.
That's so funny.
It became less sexy to me.
Who was blonde? All
of them.
Oh, okay. Were you like picturing them as like that couple where they look like brother and sister? Like that always bothers me about people. And I'm like, dude, are they together or are they related? It's just a personal problem.
That's the conflict. No, it's just, I mean, that's just personal preference. Like, you're going to get down and dirty. Like, I feel like you got to look a little...
Blondes don't do that.
A little down. No, they don't. They don't have sex, and they don't say dirty words.
Well, and I'm not... You know what's funny, too, is Well, and the guy on the cover isn't blonde, is he?
He's not. No, he's like a dirty, just... Like,
yeah, so like when I saw the cover, I was like, oh, that's Bram, like sort of thing. So it's one of those things that when I read, even when I write a script, but when I read a book, I never really touch on what characters look like. Like it's something that I don't know if it's good or bad, like, but for me, especially when I'm writing, I don't want to corner someone into, like, you have to be, this is a character that has to be played by a blonde woman between 20 and 23 that's 100 to 150 pounds. Like, I just don't think like that. And it's probably because I'm not part of that specific demographic that is usually represented. So I try not to put that into my stories. And I think by proxy, when I read stories, I don't think that way unless it's something that's specified as being like that has something to do with their character, like throughout the story.
Right,
like,
that it's important.
Yeah, exactly.
That,
I feel like usually if they're specified as being a minority, that it's usually, I mean, it's always important. I love seeing minority representation, but I feel like you don't see as much in stories, especially in romance, although that's one of my goals this year is to read more women of color romances and queer romances and just find all of the other parts of romance that I'm not seeing as much of. So it's there. It's not that it's not represented, but it's not represented mainstream, I guess. But same with plus size romance.
Absolutely. Yeah, just the demographics that are not.
But I never noticed the blonde thing, so that's so funny.
Yeah, because I remember that, like, the moment that I read that and then realized, oh, they're both blonde. Because as you're reading it and getting a sense of their characters, like, you formulate, okay, maybe this is what they look like, and so you have this idea in your head. So, and then they're cornered like that, they're described, and you're like, shit.
You're like, what? It's not Idris Elba? Damn it. God.
So hot, dude.
Meghan Quinn is blonde.
Is she? Okay. See,
yeah, I know this from following her on
brunette.
Instagram. Okay. So she's like blonde with highlights. She's got really nice hair. Meghan Quinn, you have really nice hair.
I'm going to check it out, Meghan Quinn. I'm going to look at your hair.
So, yeah, I didn't notice that one. That's so funny, though. You're like, blondes don't get down and dirty like that.
That's a brunette speaking from my personal experience.
I know what you're talking about, where it's like, I don't think of, that's so awful that you would, I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's like, I don't think of, like, this guy who, like, I'm not picturing Bram as being blonde. I pictured him as being, like, a little rough around the edges, right? And
rugged.
Yeah, and I never really think of that being a blonde kind of thing. I think of blonde as, like, being a guy named Blaine.
Yeah. Okay.
Like...
Why is that the stereotype? Like,
I know.
In my mind, blonde. Okay, clean cut. You know, skinny, tall.
Maybe a little tan. Goes to the beach.
Yeah.
Can't get dirty.
But rugged.
Yeah.
You got dark hair. You got
like,
dark features.
Like Australian rugged. You know, like they have. But even then, I want their hair to be a little longer, a little wavier, a little like sandy, gritty.
Yeah.
Like
everything's just a little rough around the edges.
Yeah. Maybe we're just neither of us are clearly attracted to clean, clean or clean cut men. We want them literally and figuratively dirty.
I think maybe that's what's going on here.
Okay. So what else?
Oh, let's see.
I'm going through my notes too.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, yeah. I mean, as unaccepting as I was of Mr. Scott.
Yeah.
I did at one point, I think it was about chapter 11, which I think is like almost halfway through.
Okay.
That I finally just accepted. He was the love interest. And he was there to stay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, it's not like I just hated on him the entire time.
You're
like,
just
I
not
got
attracted
to
to him.
Yeah, but I got to a point. I accepted it.
Okay, good. Good for you.
Thank you.
Good for you being an adult. Here, let me read you some of the things I love about Bram.
Okay.
And tell me if this makes him better for you.
Okay.
Because I would mark, first of all, love his relationship with Wrath. Mm-hmm. That's number one. In fact, I started calling them Brath. I was like, this is not the Bram Julia story. This is the Brath story. And I am for it. So, Brath, I loved their relationship. I also love that when he was in a frat, he was in charge of the Excel sheet that had every teacher on the college on it, what they teach, their weaknesses, cravings, and what they can't get enough of on top of their grading scale. I was like, oh my God, that's the smartest fucking thing I've ever heard. So clearly, he's smart.
Yes.
He's smart and he knows how to work the room. He knows his audience kind of thing. So I'm like, okay,
and
great.
he knows how to work Excel. You have to be smart.
That's impressive too. There's a lot of people who don't know how to work Excel. No judgment. Well, small judgment. He offers to eat people out. I'm like, great, good job. I do like, he's clearly a nice guy. Like, there's a moment where he talks about how he leaves magazines around his apartment that are like home and garden specifically for his cleaning woman. Like, oh, I know like she has to put up with me, so I leave her these magazines. Like, he always kind of brushes it off like, oh, it's no big deal, but, and I thought that was cute. There's a lot of repetition between how he calls her Jules versus Julia and how he brings her like milk and cookies and stuff. Like, he would be a great boyfriend in terms of like, he brings her stuff all the time and not like big gifts, but like, he just really considerate. Like, he brings her a coffee. There
is that thoughtfulness with Graham's character. There is that part of him.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I like that. He's very adventurous in the bedroom. I liked that when they talk about, because she does use a vibrator on him, but when they talk about like what he's done, what he wouldn't do and stuff when she's, giving him his test, he does say that he's like experienced anal, and I'm like, oh, and she's like, well, have you been with another man? He's like, no. I'm like, oh, great. Okay. This is just getting better and better. Like, keep going. I want to hear more about like what you're into. Like, he seems very open to new experiences. So I'm like, okay, good for you. Good for you.
But not threesomes because he's a gentleman.
Yeah. This is my favorite thing. He sends her a text that says, dinner, my place, steak and potatoes, and then your pussy for dessert. How does that sound? So polite. Yeah. Can cook. Yeah. So for me, the only thing that makes him less attractive, depending on what your preference is his personality. Of whether or not you can get past that. Yeah. Or no, not even get past. You shouldn't have to get past it.
Just accepting of it.
Embrace it. Yeah, love it. Like, whether you can love him for and despite his personality.
Which she does appear to do. They're together. And whereas it annoyed her. For most of the story. He's a little brash and brazen.
I think they're a good match, though, just because he's much more the outgoing personality, like very loud. And for her, she's much more reserved, thinks everything through. Well,
they're very good counterparts.
Yeah, yin and yang.
And maybe that's why he was written the way that he was, to give such a contrast to Julia.
Right. Yeah, So yeah, I don't know if I could be with Bram, but I would want to be friends with Bram. I think it'd be fun. If I could be Wrath in this situation and be part of Brath, that'd be great.
Special relationship.
Yeah. So, should we get down to the dirty bits?
Sure.
I shared some of my excerpts, so I think it's up to Kristen now to share a few.
Yeah. It's just some favorite parts. This is in the beginning when they've met.
Okay,
the love duo. Okay, maybe not the best choice of clothing for a frat party, but it works. Who am I kidding? The outfit is atrocious. And are those white tennis shoes and tube socks she's wearing? Tube socks. Freaking tube socks. Daring move. But if she's going for the whole stay away from me vibe with her outfit, she's nailed it.
Yep. Well,
Love
and
that.
I mean, there you go. Those tube socks go all the way to the end of the story.
Are they? It's a little bordering on fetish.
Yeah.
And then at the end, can we say?
Yeah.
That with he gives her her own drawer. And it's
With
full
tube
of
socks.
tube socks.
What a message.
See, he's
Nothing
a caring
says
guy.
I love you like a drawer full of tube socks.
Let's see. Oh, this was my favorite direct quote from Bram. I might never be more than a washed-up frat boy who happened to strike it rich, and therefore not the man you think you should end up with, but at least I'm not a deadbeat who couldn't care less about you or your career. I just like that.
There you go.
I might never be nothing more than a washed-up frat boy.
There you go.
Love it.
I like it. That's kind of like, I feel like that, just the way he says things is very consistent throughout the book. Like, well, I might just be this way, or like, maybe it wasn't polite of me to offer to eat her out, but like, that's how he starts a lot of his sentences. So it's kind of like he makes excuses for himself. I guess that's like a trait of his personality. So whether you love it or hate it.
Yes. Hey, he's true to himself. I can accept that.
Yes. I've got a nice passage that this was actually, I think when we first meet Julia, or it was one of the first things we got when you met Julia. I'm pretty sure this is a description of Julia from Bram's point of view. Okay. And it says, Julia Westin, smart like her brother. I like to say smarter, but Wrath will tell you differently. Yeah, definitely from Bram's point of view. Shy, but if you put a hoagie in front of her, she will down that Italian delight like she was at a hot dog eating contest. She shoves it right down her throat. She has a PhD in behavioral science and is damn proud of the title Dr. Love, as some call her. She spent the last 8 years refining a program she created from the ground up called What's Your Color? I was like, okay, that tells us a lot about her, but also like why he admires her is, you know, kind of like him. No matter where he's gone and what he is now, he's still going to be the frat boy. She's still refined, but can shove a hot dog down her throat, you know?
Hoagie.
A hoagie. Because it's the East Coast.
That's right. We're in New York, baby.
I meant to ask you, what did you think? A lot of the story is told, it's told from Bram's point of view, but he says it like in second person. Like he's addressing an audience. Like, you would never believe this, or do you get that?
Yeah,
like
he's
he
talking
definitely,
right to you and him.
Yeah, it's very conversational, and I feel like I don't read that a lot in romance or in fiction. Really, I feel like I don't read a lot of stories told from that point of view. So
yeah, that is just how is it usually done? Is it third person?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, it's third person, or it'll jump back and forth between first person of like Julia talking about her story and then Bram talking about his story. Like, oh, I did this and she looked amazing. It made me feel like this, you know. So yeah, so I felt like it was an interesting mix. That it's not that I didn't like it. It was different from what I usually read.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really. It didn't bother me. It didn't take me out of the story at all. It was just okay. That's the way this is going to be told, and so long as it's not like jumping around. Yeah. So Bram and Julia went off and blah blah blah. No, it was still like told in that way all the way through. So that was consistent. Right. That was fine by me. And I guess with most of the things I've read, I don't see that a lot. I'll agree. You know, for me, I kept picturing this as a movie. I really do think it would be a great movie. There were like several moments where I'm like, oh, cinematic moment. Like, oh, that would work great. I can picture the scene. Like, and it's my screenwriter brain thinking, of course, you know, but especially with like recent romantic comedies that have come out like on Netflix and Hulu and, you know, not as much in theaters these days. But this was one of those stories where I could picture it as being one of those like Netflix set it up. Oh, Bram mentions that he was watching The Kissing Booth one night. Like that's another Netflix rom-com. And I was like, I could see this being that. Like, I mean, I guess I could too. Whatever I read, it does appear to me like I'm watching, you know, that is my cinematic brain as well. Yeah. It's just seeing it like it's on a screen, like I'm watching this, you know, happen. I'm not in the story. They're not going to be blonde in my movie. Maybe her, not him. Okay, she can be a little dirty blonde. Yeah.
But no, I feel like there's definitely like movie potential with this one. Like I was seeing it, I'm like, you've got the really simple rom-com setup. You know, he wants her, she likes him, she's hesitant, the whole color thing. I'm like, it's all there. It's very simple to set up. Like I could see it
Meghan
working.
Quinn, if you're listening, time to turn this bad boy into
Yeah.
what, a series?
No, movie.
A movie.
Yeah. I think
Pitch
a
it,
movie.
girl. Pitch it.
Yeah, let's do it. You could do, no, I don't think you could. You could do a series if it was like all of the books, like if it was like Wrath and Rourke and all them. Or what's to say you can't just release, why can't we release rom-coms or movies like we release books, like in a series? Like why can't it be a series of films? You know, like, I think that would be great. Like, isn't that what, what's his face? Baz Luhrmann. That's like kind of how he released his movies, was like, it was, what was it? It was Strictly Ballroom, Moulin Rouge, and Romeo and Juliet. And that was like supposed to be like,
was that a, like,
it was like a series.
Oh,
he
okay.
called it his, it's like the Curtain Trilogy or the Red Curtain Trilogy.
I never knew that. How
but it's
interesting.
like, they're not the same. It's not like a sequel. It's not like, you know, Toy Story 3. Like, but I feel like that would be great for stuff like this, is releasing them as like, oh, this is part of that universe. Like the Crazy Rich Asians, I feel like, is the only example I can think of where they came out with the first book and they're already planning to do more of the book adaptations into films. And I'm like, okay, so those will all be part of the same universe, same cast, but different stories. Like, and that's how a lot of romance novel series are read.
Right.
Is like its own little Marvel universe.
That's a good,
Right.
like the Marvel movies.
We do it with superheroes. Why can't we do it with romantic comedies?
Well, I mean, it could happen. That's a great idea.
Maybe this is what I need to do with my life, is to start approaching all my favorite romance novelists. Be like, hi, I'm a reader. I'm also a screenwriter. Let's make this movie. But yeah, dreams.
Okay.
Hashtag goals.
It's not just a pipe dream for you, kid.
Okay, we got it. Well, I feel like we have to give some sort of indication of the sexual content of this book. So let me read you. Oh my gosh. I actually marked a few different passages that I liked.
Ooh.
I have to share the vibrator one. That's my favorite.
I can tell. It's your fave. All right.
Oh, you know what was actually really good about this book? We read another book for the podcast where we talked about how, I think it was part of our Christmas Boobsmas series. We talked about how the book, like, put high emphasis on kissing. Like, you were like, oh my gosh, I looked at kissing in, like, a whole new way. Like, usually kissing is, like, the precursor that, like, leads to something else. But that book, I think it was All I Want for Christmas is a Cowboy. There was a lot of kissing. You're like, oh, this is, like, the main course. Like, right here. Okay. I felt the same way about this book when it came to nipple play. Like, I've never really, both for men and women, it's never really been something that, like, I'm super into or attached to, or, like, there was a lot of nipple action going on.
And you can appreciate, that's the thing in this book.
Nipple play I was like, important. Okay. But there is a scene where he already knows that she has toys and he thinks it's like the sexiest thing ever. Although I was like, come on. Like, it's, come on. Like, why is that, new and wild and crazy? I guess it's just because he fantasizes about her. Yeah. So it's now he can fantasize about her and her vibrator. But so she pulls out her vibrator once they've hooked up, and we'll go from here. When I bring the vibrator to the tip of his cock, it twitches beautifully under the sensation, making my nipples hard. I rub my legs together, my body heating in seconds from his reaction. Sitting a little taller, I bring the vibrator down his shaft to his balls, where I let it hum a few seconds. His growl echoes through the room, spurring me on even more. And that's when I press the tip of the vibrator to his perineum. His bottom half shoots off the bed, and his hand falls to my backside where he grips me as if he's dependent on my support. His cock grows even harder, and a small drop of pre-cum at his tip glimmers under the moonlight. I don't know about that part. And then it's fuck. His hands grip the sheets as his cock jumps off his stomach, aching for touch. Babe, gah, fuck, Julia, Christ. He goes to touch his dick, but I swat him away, loving how I'm making him sweat. I just wrote vibrator on a guy. That's hot. Straightforward, to the point.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I forgot that detail about the pre-cum glistening in the moonlight. So funny.
You know, not like diamonds, not, you know, but, you know, pre-cum. Like, yeah,
it's
who
beautiful,
knew?
like a teardrop.
I wonder what he eats that it's like so like clear and sparkly and glistening.
I don't know. You know, that reminded me. Thank you for reading that.
Oh, great.
That was a fun time through again. That reminded me, my appreciation for this author, I believe, she did not refer to Bram's appendage even once as a throbbing member. And I remember that being like a stereotype, just, you know, from listening about romance novels. But that's a stereotype. Like, they always refer to it as a throbbing member.
There's definitely, I feel like I see a lot of throbbing still. I feel like I don't see as much member. I'll see a lot of like shaft. Like, I feel like shaft is the new member. Shaft is the new member. Orange is the new black.
Hashtag shaft is the new member.
You know what I always think of when I think of like throbbing member is, do you remember in 10 Things I Hate About You when Allison Janney, she's the principal of their high school and she's like writing a romance novel in her office. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I love, and so she's always
movie,
like, she's always working on it, and then like students will come in and Kat, the Julia Stiles character, gives her like advice. Like, she's like, oh, I'll let you get back to Reginald's pulsating member. And she's like, ooh, pulsating member. I like that. Like, and then she calls it a bratwurst at one point. Like, that's just like one of my favorite scenes where they talk about romance in some way in a movie.
That's gotta be tough, and you gotta give the author credit where credit is due when they are creative, because there's only so many descriptors of a penis.
Yeah.
Or of a vagina.
I feel like there's even less for vagina.
Definitely less. Yeah, I think people are, I don't know, maybe a little more hesitant to, there's a fine line there.
Yeah.
But with the penis itself, because it's talked about frequently, I think, in romance and erotica, right? It's like a main dish.
It is a main feature attraction.
And there's only so many ways you can describe the thing.
Yeah. It's true.
The end.
The thing. There you go. There's one. We've said like 8 just in the last 2 minutes. Okay, are you ready to rate the book?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the very best that it could possibly be, you're going to grade for the story, the syntax, and the sexcapades. So let's just start with story.
The story, I'm actually going to give it an 8. Aside from all of, you know, my
I think that's great
about Bram, I thought the story itself was just fine.
Yeah, I don't have a separate category for characters. That's not a thing, but I feel like that would factor into story. Well, as far as like we talked about, you know, pacing and about the actual structure of it. I guess I'm looking at it that way. Like the story was just fine. Yeah. You know, it made sense. It tied up. It had its beginning. It's there. It had its conflict, its resolution, all of that. I'm with you. I'm going to give it an 8 too. I think my only, and I've mentioned it, my only complaint is that I feel like some things came a little too late in the book, but it made sense that they were there. Like, I still liked the whole color thing. I just wish it had come a little earlier. I loved his pursuit of her for like the first, I feel like it was even more than half. I feel like it was like a good like 2/3 of the book. But I like that. I like the slow burn chase kind of thing, because then I feel like when they finally get together, it's so much more rewarding. Like a bigger payoff. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I liked that. And I don't know. I still like Bram. Like, I still like him. I don't know if I would date him. I would certainly fuck him, but I'm on board. I would read it again. Put it that way. It's something I would read again. It's something I would recommend. How about syntax? Meghan Quinn's writing, her style. I enjoy her writing. I enjoy it more so when she's writing from Julia's perspective, like I mentioned before. Fair enough. I can relate. Yes. As far as her writing for Bram, even though I personally, you know,
I can't empathize with that. I don't really understand. It's not my type of person.
Right.
She did well.
Yeah, it's not so much the writing, because it was certainly consistent.
It was his voice was very clear. Like, even when you were saying that quote, like, as soon as you started talking, it's like, oh, that's Bram's voice. Like, it's very easy to understand.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. You didn't grade it yet.
I didn't grade it. Oh, no.
It sounds like it's going to be a good grade.
It is. You know what? I will give it a 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'll give it a 9. Mm-hmm. I'll give it a 9. I really enjoyed it, and I think it's fun. I for sure laughed out loud a few different times while reading it. And I feel like 2019, I've been off to a really good start with books I've read both for the podcast and separate. And this one, definitely had me giggling. So I liked that. It was fun. It was a fun read.
Yeah.
And then the sexcapades.
Okay. Sexcapades. This,
And you can think about it in terms of not just the content, but also, like, was there enough? Did you think there was too much?
That's
like,
actually why I'm dickering a little bit.
Yeah.
Dickering.
Good choice.
Because I felt like I went into this expecting more sex.
Okay.
That was just my preconceived notion about romance.
It's fine.
There wasn't enough. And when we did finally get it, I mean, it was almost right there at the end, and it was really, for me, as exciting as it was, and all the different things they talked about doing. It was very quick. Like,
it was kind of like a lot of quick scenes, like back to back. In fact, there were 2 that were literally back to back, like they were boning in one scene. And then in the next scene, it picked up, but like as a separate sexual encounter. And I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. Like they just jumped from one to the other.
Yeah. I think I would have preferred more, somehow, like it to be drug more into the like middle of the story, beginning of the story, something, because there were a lot of moments that it was like very, very, very close, very close.
Yeah.
Or like Bram says something, in his voice, like, I'm going to eat you out on the desk.
Yeah.
And so it's like it takes you to the precipice, then brings it back.
Right.
Maybe that's done on purpose, but I need more of a little payoff throughout. So I am going to give it a 7.
Okay, that's fine. I'm torn too, because it's almost like I look at it in a couple different ways. Like, for the adventurous sex that they have, 10.
Yeah.
For the foreplay, slow build up to the actual sex, like where they are teasing you, like in terms of like teasing you, 10. Like, and then when you do get to it, it's good. But I'm with you. It's very much, they're all crammed into the same section of the story.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it came too late, but it's almost like I just felt like it came too late, and then to make up for it, Meghan Quinn was like, I gotta put in a few more. Which they were all good, but maybe like I could have done without like one or the other, sort of thing. So I think 7's fair. I think 7's a good one, because I really did love the content of the sex scenes.
Totally, yeah.
And maybe a 7.5. Not quite an 8, but it would be a 10 if it was just for what's in them. So I'm like, okay, good for you, you know.
I gotta take the average of it,
Yeah. Okay, so despite your reservations about Bram, it seems like you maybe enjoyed reading.
Yeah, no, it was a fun book. Despite its length, it did take me a little bit longer, because I was reading after work and all of that.
Yeah.
It could be a quick read if you just sit down and do it. Like, cause,
I read it as part of the 24 and 48 challenge, so it definitely, but in doing so, it for sure took me a few hours, like, of just, sitting. So, I mean, and it's one where you don't have to read it in one read. Like, did you feel fine about reading it over the span of a few days?
Yeah, I could totally just pick up where I left off, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah, he's still pursuing her. Nothing really changes. So that's good. Is this something you would, like, recommend to someone? Or would you want to maybe read another, not just another romance, but would you want to read another Meghan Quinn? Or would you want to read another romance in general?
I wouldn't mind reading another Meghan Quinn, just to give me some perspective.
Yeah.
And, see, okay, what is her voice? Oh, okay, it's the same in that one. That's the author's voice. And then judge this book.
Sure.
Like, I feel like I can't judge this book on its character just by itself, and
just
not
by
ever reading another romance or anything. I would definitely read another romance. Sure,
okay.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Yeah.
This was fun. I wouldn't read it again, but yeah, I'd recommend it to somebody who's just looking for just a fun little thing.
Fun read. Contemporary story. I mean, very much like this could be any man or woman that nowadays. Like I connect better with those than I do with historical romance, just because, again, it's the realism in me that I'm like, oh, this could be me. This could be this hot guy at the coffee shop. Like, it's going to happen.
A pirate on a ship and the sword play.
God, I love some pirates. For me, I always think of, maybe that's why I like motorcycle romance, because I always think of motorcycle romance as like the modern day pirate kind of thing. Okay. So yeah, I got plenty of those if you want those.
Didn't know that was a thing.
Oh, now it is. I think we have to end with, are you going to read what we hope will be the next books in this series? I hope it is a series. I feel like it has to be, right? Like, it's so set up for Wrath and Rourke to have their own into books.
Their individual.
Yeah.
You know what? Definitely, if it's Rourke McCool's story, I want to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
And Wrath, I think I just need to get to know him a little bit better.
Yeah. If I was thinking of this in terms of a series, Wrath would be the next book. And then in that one, we would still find out a little bit more about Rourke. Maybe like he has some weird thing from the past, like come back to haunt him, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then the last book would be Rourke. And that's like how the series would go. So please, I hope it does, because I love Meghan Quinn's writing. This is not my first Meghan Quinn. It will certainly not be my last. Yeah. And I'm hoping it won't be your last. And I know it won't be if Rourke gets a book.
I will be right here.
Yeah, so Meghan Quinn, you know where to find us. We'll be here waiting patiently for Rourke's book.